said of you?
I am a peace process baby.
I should just make a song called I Love Europeans.
I always say, like, people in Northern Ireland have two faces.
Peace Babies, un documentaire audio de Café Babel. 4 portraits pour comprendre l'identité de la génération qui a grandi après les troubles en Irlande du Nord, en toute subjectivité. Épisode 2, Anna, raconté par Hélène.
L'identité, c'était un sujet qui nous touchait. Nous-mêmes, nous avons vécu dans différents pays et concilié des origines diversifiées. C'est sous cet angle-là qu'on a voulu parler de l'Irlande du Nord. On est allé rencontrer des jeunes de notre génération pour leur demander comment ils avaient construit leur identité, coincés entre les troubles et le Brexit.
I am a peace process baby, is what they're called. If you're 25, I was born in 1995, so that was the year that the peace agreement was signed, Good Friday Agreement. So I'm known as peace process baby. I never experienced the violence, thank God, but you experience all the hangovers of it.
Anna est grande. Elle a un sourire jusqu'aux oreilles, une frange brune, de longs cheveux et un pantalon pas de def en velours côtelé. On l'a rencontrée pendant une réunion du groupe d'activistes Extinction Rebellion à Belfast. C'est elle qui a créé l'antenne de la capitale nord-irlandaise, même si elle est trop modeste pour l'admettre. Anna est en charge de coordonner la partie graphique et visuelle des actions menées à Belfast. Ce soir-là, on met la main à la pâte. On la noircit même d'encre en aidant à réaliser des badges et bannières qui serviront pour la prochaine action. Anna, ça la fait bien rire de nous voir débarquer à l'improviste et de voir à quel point on s'applique. La glace se brise et la réunion se prolonge au pub. Anna a 25 ans, comme nous. On lui parle du projet. La question des frontières l'intéresse, et c'est pour ça qu'elle accepte de se prêter au jeu. Nous jetons finalement notre dévolu sur un bar qui s'appelle le Sunflower. Il a une terrasse chauffée, colorée et silencieuse. Plus tard dans la soirée, des groupes improvisés se rejoignent pour des jam sessions. Avant, ce local ou bar de quartier était exclusivement réservé à la communauté catholique. Selon Anna, aujourd'hui encore, c'est pas forcément commun d'y aller en tant que protestante.
Growing up, especially when I was like 18, 19, like you just don't go to you wouldn't go to your local because you know that's like a UDA bar, that's an IRA bar, you know, like your locals generally were paramilitary bars. So like you go in the door and everyone like, you know, creaks the neck and turns around to look at you and who are you? Sort of thing. So everyone had to know everyone who was in the bar. Because obviously for safety, like during the Troubles, it was like you can't have strangers coming in because it's not safe. And even now, like I went like a year ago maybe, and they were like so surprised that I was there, the locals, because I'm from East Belfast. And when they found this out, they couldn't believe it. Like the punters at the bar, they were like, "What? You're from East Belfast?" They were like, "Gather round, gather round." They'd brought like all the old punters around me, and they were like, "What was it like? Like, you know, it must have been terrible growing up in East Belfast." And it's like 10 minutes away.
Anna a grandi à East Belfast. Elle est issue d'une famille de classe moyenne supérieure et protestante. Encore aujourd'hui, la ville est divisée en quartiers, même si les murs qui autrefois formaient une réelle frontière ont ouvert leurs portes. Au Peace Wall, qui séparait catholiques et protestants, les checkpoints militaires ont laissé place aux touristes et les murals font concurrence aux barbelés. Les communautés se côtoient peu à peu, mais les traces du passé sont visibles. Au Sunflower notamment, une cage grillagée jaune à la porte d'entrée protège le passage d'inconnus non désirés. À seulement quelques rues, en plein centre-ville, un autre bar utilise quant à lui une sonnette qui autrefois était destinée à identifier les catholiques, autorisés à l'intérieur, des protestants qui devaient rester dehors.
Growing up, it was like I didn't really know anyone from West Belfast, or I had no friends who were Catholic. It was so beautiful to meet like people from the West and just to be like, yeah, like I'm from East. What's up? Yeah. Went to like an all Protestant school, so like the schools are pretty much all segregated still. So mine was all Protestant, but we had a Catholic school beside us, which was really interesting. We just like throw rocks at each other over the, which is mad, right? My nursery school, which I never thought was strange until I told it to an English friend, and they were like, "That's weird," and I was like, "Is it?" But yeah, my nursery school was right beside like a mural like from a huge building of like, I mean, it's insane to describe now, but it was death on a battlefield. So you know the image of death in like a black hood with a scythe holding a soldier's head, and so that was like an Irish soldier's head that he was holding. It was dripping blood. It was right beside my nursery school, and I never thought that was strange. It was like an extremely violent image to be surrounded by. I mean, thank God it wasn't actually the real thing. You know what I mean? It's only the hangover. It's only the leftovers, traces, the last remaining fits of the violence.
De notre point de vue d'étrangère à Belfast et à tout ça, l'enfance qu'elle nous racontait nous paraissait ségrégée. Une école protestante, un quartier protestant. Plus tôt, on a découvert Shankill, un quartier protestant populaire qui marque encore une frontière dans la ville. Le mur qui les sépare des quartiers catholiques est encore là. Pourtant, Anna, on la rencontre au milieu d'un joyeux bazar où ces questions ne semblent plus d'actualité. On se demande à quel moment les portes se sont ouvertes. Alors, on lui demande quand est-ce qu'elle est allée dans les quartiers ouest catholiques pour la première fois.
Genuinely, when I was like 23, I mean, my parents are like missionaries, Christians, so we would have done a lot of like youth work in East Belfast in the Shankill when I was a kid. So I'd be running about with all the kids from the East Belfast, but like I was really surprised when I drove. It was only because I was doing a university project about the border that I was that was the first time I really went in there and had a chat with everyone, and I was like, why are all these Irish flags everywhere? Like, I was so surprised that this was in Belfast, and I'd never seen Irish flags in Belfast, what I thought was Belfast, but actually it was just that I was on my side of the peace wall, and I was like, what? Like, they've got like Irish murals everywhere. Like, is this allowed? Like, there's people walking around in Gaelic football kits, and they had their like hurley sticks, which is like Irish sport. And I was like, this is like 10 minutes away from me, and I'm 23, and I never knew that this was a thing. I was like, is this allowed?
La soirée avance et les langues se délient. Anna raconte ses années d'université en Angleterre. Pour elle, c'est une période clé qui, malgré quelques frustrations, l'a amenée à re-questionner son identité.
What I realised, because I studied in England at university, and I realised when I got there that I would introduce myself as Northern Irish, and everyone was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I mean that I'm Northern Irish. And they're like, oh, you know, you're Irish. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not Irish. I've never been allowed to be, you know, like, definitely like in the context of like cultural identity, it was you're British from being a kid. So I don't know why, like, even when we were like 10 years old in school, like, we'd be all talking about it, like, oh, I'm British, you know, my dad says I'm British to the bone or whatever, and you're like, yeah, me too. We've no idea what we're talking about. But
and how was it to move in England?
Which was a huge culture shock, to be honest, mostly because everyone thought I was Irish immediately, and then they were asking me all these Irish questions, and I was like, did you not hear like what happened? Like, what did they not teach you in school? Answer no, they didn't teach any of them. They thought we use euros, and people my age, I'm like, they didn't learn any of it. That there was English soldiers in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, for like 30 years off. They didn't give a fuck. It was like a running joke at the start of uni, because it just was making me so angry. Because it's such a... It made me so angry, and I don't think anybody understood why. But I was just kind of like, all of this shit that happened for years, that's basically Northern Ireland's been shit on. Can I swear? And the people here have literally got PTSD because of the violence that has occurred because of this. And nobody fucking even cares or knows. And it's not even that I really give a fuck about being British ever. Like, I don't care. I never cared. It was just that I just thought that was what it was. So I think anger was a really surprising thing that arose that I wasn't aware that it would. And then I get drunk and I'd be like, well, the peace process was signed in 1995. And they're like, shut up, Anna. Let it go.
PTSD, c'est l'acronyme de Post-Traumatic Syndrome Disorder, ou trouble de stress post-traumatique en français. Il s'agit d'un trouble anxieux sévère qui se manifeste à la suite d'une expérience vécue comme traumatisante avec une confrontation à des idées de mort. On en a surtout entendu parler après le retour des soldats de la guerre du Vietnam. Selon Anna, on ne commence à en parler que maintenant en Irlande du Nord, et les générations touchées ont bien sûr du mal à l'accepter.
I think like a lot of people have PTSD here. The older generations, like my mum, we moved to the countryside and the farmer was shooting pheasants and my mum was like shit herself, like freaked out. She turned the radio on and she was like, it's a bomb. And she was like listening and calling her friends and I was like, whoa, she has PTSD from the Troubles. She lived in the centre of town with 3 young kids under 3, wasn't allowed to leave the house when it got dark. I was like, this is real shit, but for me it was just flags and colours and anecdotes. You know, I just pretended I knew. Again, the PTSD of it all, it's not something that anyone wanted to relive for a long time. So a lot of it is only coming out now-ish. And people they kind of dismiss it in their own ways. You know, like a lot of it's humour. You're like, people just make jokes about it the whole time in that kind of way. So it wasn't, I think there was a long time here where it wasn't spoken of at all.
Peace Babies, épisode 2, Anna.
One of the top Google searches in the UK, what is the European Union?
The epic decision coming after a long night of suspense that began the moment.
Nous sommes le 23 juin 2016.
For so many around the world, a stunning result. Deciding to leave the European Union.
Anna est toujours étudiante en Angleterre. Les résultats
Every hour
tombent.
made the pattern clearer. You can see it on the map. England and Wales voting to get out of the EU. London and the suburbs voting to stay. And Scotland and Northern Ireland overwhelmingly pro-EU.
My initial emotional response was like, no, we were doing so good. You know, we just healed. And probably like a little bit because I was feeling quite Irish and I was like, please don't cut me off from Ireland, because that's where I felt at that time that like where a lot of the beautiful things in our culture that I've been recently learning about was from Ireland. And I felt a bit like, just don't demonise the north and south more, because that's what would happen. Psychological, geographical divide would have just deepened, and when it's just started healing. And you read about that and you're like, okay, like it'll be fine, you know. But it's too fresh to play with, I felt.
56% des Nord-Irlandais ont voté non. Le résultat ? 3 ans de discussion, un ping-pong de négociations, et parmi les grands débats, la frontière entre la République d'Irlande et l'Irlande du Nord.
To be honest, my thought was that there was a gap missing in the conversation, because everyone was discussing the Northern Irish border and no one from Northern Ireland was being heard at all. It was kind of like we're talking about like the little brother doesn't really matter. So I was like, there's a lot of journalists covering this, but nobody's actually listening to the local people who live on the border, who this will actually affect day to day. I just felt like there was a story that no one was telling, which seemed to me to be the only story that we had to listen to. In that sense, like, how are you going to talk about completely disrupting someone's life?
Touchée, Anna décide de s'emparer du sujet et rentre en Irlande du Nord pour questionner les vrais gens, comme elle dit. Ceux qui risquent d'être affectés par cette frontière au quotidien. Elle décide alors de réaliser une série de photos de la frontière actuelle sur les points où il pourrait y avoir de nouveau des checkpoints militaires. De ce projet intitulé The Border est né un livre de photographie qui, selon elle, cherche à trouver des moyens de connexion sur des territoires en tension. Ces photos mettent en valeur le territoire et ses habitants. Une route, un chemin, un vieux monsieur dans son atelier.
And like, but what's really fascinating about it is that like there'd be a grass track and then it would just stop, and then there'd be tarmac, and like the farmer would just stop, like the council would just stop there because they're like, that's Northern Ireland. So it was like this. It was really beautiful for me in that way, because it was just like, how lucky are we to be able to just go over the border without even noticing. And I interviewed like older people and younger people, and I asked them, what does the border mean to you? And my granny was like, well, during the war, you know, they used to check everything, and you had to go and smuggle your biscuits across the border, and blah blah blah. And she's like, Ireland had a German embassy during the war, and all this chat. And then I'd speak to someone from the next generation down, and they'd be remembering like rifles, and so their childhood memories would be of like war, military imagery. And then I asked my little sister, and she was like, well, I just like, the border makes me think of like holidays and ice cream and like just like summer. And I was like, that's amazing, isn't it? Like, that's done so well. That's like the peace process has succeeded. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, you're going to come and put like military checkpoints and give all these people who have PTSD the shock of their lives. Like, get the fuck out of here. Do you know what I mean? Leave it. Leave it.
Pour clore nos épisodes, on a voulu poser une question à laquelle on ne sait jamais trop quoi répondre, mais qui nous a été posée un nombre incalculable de fois, surtout dans les auberges de jeunesse. Alors, on a demandé à Anna le fameux « Where are you from ?» D'où viens-tu?
The world. I'm from the earth that sustains me.
Dans le prochain épisode, nous ferons la connaissance de Clio. Aujourd'hui thésarde en biologie à l'université de Queen, elle a grandi dans le quartier catholique du nord de Belfast. Tout au long de notre séjour nord-irlandais, Noé n'a cessé de nous raconter des histoires et des anecdotes. Quand on lui demandait comment il en avait entendu parler, souvent, il nous répondait « c'est Clio ». À suivre sur cafébabel.com.